Let's go!
Actual news from Tokyo Game Show. That isn't just a rehash of old stuff. So thank you, Audrey, for translating this. And this is coming from JP Games. In a recent interview with JP Games DE, Hamaguchi reveals a few details about FF7 Part 3. The title has been determined, reflects the gameplay and experience. It's much like the first two titles. Return or returns. Hopes to reveal news in the near future. I'm betting on the Game Awards. That's where we show something for the first time. That's where the first teaser is at TGA's. Part 3 is the last part of the trilogy, and he thinks they'll have a suitable finale for a great send-off, and wants to see Final Fantasy series moving forward beyond multi-platform for all future titles. To add to that, there's a couple of tidbits in this article on it's Automaton-Media. If we scroll down a little bit, you can check out the full article. I'll go ahead and paste it in both chats right now. There is some pretty crazy quotes directly from Hamaguchi-san as well. The second entry, Rebirth, has been doing very well on both PS5 and PC. I know some fans have expressed concerns, but please rest assured that we'll be able to deliver a proper, high-quality third installment. All right, well, there you go. Apparently, sales of the game aren't necessarily low. There's been some expectations behind that. But yeah, we don't have to worry about sales messing up future Square games and things like that. And it's not even out on everything yet. It hasn't even made it multi-platform. Even the first game didn't make it multi-platform, so that's really good news. Also saying development is going extremely well and has been shaping up nicely. A lot of the content is already playable, and the game's direction and form are firmly set in place. Right now, the team is united around refining everything. Whoa. Chat, so that means that game's direction and form, for those that don't understand that, the game is functional. You could play through it. Polish is what it's gonna need. So playtesting, yeah, they're probably at a point where things are being play tested, but that means that like if a game is like playable from beginning to end, that like all the pieces that go together to make that happen are there. They'll need probably a year of polish. So this is definitely lining up to early 2027 in my opinion. 7/7/27? No, I don't think they're gonna go there. I think it'll be first quarter 2027, before April, before the end of April. That's big news, dude. That's actually massive news for the scale and scope of the game to be completed within a time frame that isn't abysmal, like a 2030 or something. This is probably going to be out for the 30th anniversary of the game. For new players discovering 7 Remake Integrate on Nintendo Switch 2 or Series X and S, I'd love to you to first enjoy that experience and also play the second game when it launches while anticipating the third installment. Yeah, okay. To me, it definitely also feels like the vibe that I'm getting from the Xbox and Switch 2 version of the game launching early next year. It's like a second launch. Like they're treating this like it's a secondary launch of the whole game. And it's good that it looks very good. The Switch 2 version I played, and yeah, I didn't play a ton of it, but I was pretty impressed. And I was like, wow, okay. You mean third launch? Yeah, maybe. Maybe the third launch. There's already an announcement that all of the games are going to make it to all of the platforms. The full trilogy is confirmed to be on Switch 2. They said it. The full trilogy will also be multi-platform. Whether or not the next game launches on multi-platform, we don't exactly know yet. It's my presumption it won't. But again, I'm reminding you the way I feel, not what's directly known. Hopefully it doesn't, like, you're going to require the entire year for it to show up on other platforms. That being the case, them talking this much about development is the most they've talked about development in like a year. This is the most they have discussed Part 3 in a very long time, dude. And leading up to Part 3, they're gonna have the release of Part 1 on other systems, the release of Part 2 on other systems, and the eventual hype train that leads up to the final game. I would love it to be PC day one. I would love it, but I just do not directly. I see that being an unlikelihood. So we have another article, so you guys can read it in full. Yeah, you were right. Inverse put up a very pretty looking article too. We didn't adjust the schedules of development timeline for Part 3 in order to work on the multi-platform release of the 3 titles. Some of the teams have moved around to work on the titles. So we're talking about FF7 Rebirth and Remake showing up on other systems. That's all good news. They figured it out. Regarding the Switch 2 and Xbox version, these two were decided during separate times. It occurred when Nintendo first shared with us the new hardware and details. We thought to me that 7 can run on these specs. That was the first slot. From there, the engineers joined the conversation. From there, we made the decision that going to really support the continuous expansion of the franchise in terms of the timeline, the Xbox release was determined a bit earlier than we had the explanation from Nintendo regarding new hardware. But of course, we had the change from our president. Under his vision, we shifted to a more multi-platform release to continue reach a broader audience around the world. and it's more aligned to that philosophy as well. Wow. New CEO making things possible. That probably would not have happened under the previous tenureship of Square. With Switch 2 various titles that are ported, a common sentiment is that the graphics might look different and such. We focus on optimizing for Switch 2, and I believe we were able to achieve a state where the graphic quality is not too different from the PS5. And hearing player feedback from PAX West and Gamescom, I'm hearing that many users felt it was quite beautiful visually. As a dev team, we're happy to hear. This is sort of the first mainline Final Fantasy to come out on Nintendo consoles. This is certainly not the end, and not the end with Final Fantasy VII. We want to continue to have the FF franchise be supported and loved by players around the world. This is something we'll continue to strive. Cool. Talking about Rebirth. Ooh, geez, man. Experience working on 7 Remake and Switch 2 gave us a very solid foundation of knowledge from the development team. Talking more specifically in terms of character expression, this really hinges on the lighting, so we focused on this end to make sure the lighting was as close to as possible in aligning with the PS5 lighting, and then on things like post effects, fog, and calcs, we had more aligned in the specific console, and that way we had optimized the game for specific hardware. Our learning and experience from that Rebirth is building on that as well, so certainly the experience we gained is fueling us in that sense. We put a lot of dev resources into optimization, and as a result of that, I think it's a pretty great title that maximizes the Switch 2. Also, I want to mention that at the end of a year, a demo is coming out for Switch 2 and Xbox. Ooh. Of course, having collabs, that's not something that only we can decide, so there's nothing that I'm able to confirm. However, in terms of Final Fantasy being a more well-known and loved by players, I see collabs as something very positive, and it would be great to have more of them. Is a simultaneous launch on all systems for Part 3 something you're aiming for? We cannot currently state how exactly Part 3 will be released. I wish to have as many players for Switch, Xbox, and PC included to be able to play the game on their desired platform. So we're striving to make that happen in the best way possible. It's PlayStation at the start. That's what I'm getting out of that, dude. Windows Central, hold on a second. Firstly, we had a new president at Square, so we had a new direction when it comes to multi-platform. I believe this is the most vital point. The vision is to deliver FF to a broader and wider audience through multi-platform releases. Whether this is cloud gaming, console, handheld, PC, that's pretty much the core philosophy of Square Enix. Smart. Decided to conduct 7 Remake as a trilogy. If we were to totally align the original and replicate it exactly, I believe that would still appeal to players, but because it became a larger trilogy, we felt that it was necessary to change things up and try different things to maintain interest across each part, then to pique player curiosity. I understand there are different opinions regarding choices we have made for the Remake series, but I think as a whole, as a developer, I do think that this was the right direction to make. I can't comment yet on 7 Remake Part 3, but I'm also a big fan of the original Final Fantasy VII. I'm someone who played it when it was released. I believe the direction we are taking will ultimately satisfy fans who are eagerly awaiting its conclusion. The writer, the director, everybody has like, why would we do this if it's just going to conclude in the same way? Like, I think it was Kitase that said, I want to end this series with like a different kind of finality, a different kind of happiness. It sort of felt like these characters were sort of tortured after their existence. Like they just don't find peace in any way. So he sort of was talking about like, we wanted to create something that would eventually be an actual finality to the story, you know? And that's greatly documented in the subtext video that went back and found all the clips of the devs talking about that stuff that sort of breaks it down. And I agree. I think it would be nice to have an actual, like a real ending. Because dude, chat, a reminder, Final Fantasy VII, the OG, does not even have an ending really. It's super ambiguous. Advent Children fills in a lot of that ambiguity, but that's like, Advent Children is sort of like your finality of Final Fantasy VII in some way, which is either satisfying or unsatisfying depending if you like Advent Children's story, because it's also a lot different, you know? People are definitely wanting things to be cleared up, you know what I mean? The thing about this is that what the Final Fantasy VII Remake series is doing is kind of gonna help out like the future of the franchise, much less Square Enix. They have created like a development pipeline and like a game design document for 3 total games, one of which that for the first time in Square Enix history of Final Fantasy actually has HD towns. A reminder, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the first big HD post 1080p era of Final Fantasy that has towns and a lot of NPCs and interactive towns and traversable towns without loading and stuff. Final Fantasy 15? Wait a minute. You mean the game with 7 gas stations that are all the same? 1 small town on a cliff and a giant fake Venice that is completely disconnected from the whole world. That game did not have HD towns, my dude. It had a couple of places you could go, sort of. I understand. It seems like 15 had towns. It did not. It certainly did not.